fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The throne room trembled violently, a low, guttural groan resonating deep within the ancient stones. It wasn't a sound that simply entered your ears. It vibrated through the floor, up your legs, settling as a sickening thrum in your chest. Dust rained down from the vaulted ceiling, a fine gray powder illuminated by the flickering torchlight. Each flare and dimming cast dancing shadows across the tapestry-lined walls, turning familiar scenes of heroic victories into grotesque, shifting figures. The tapestries themselves, woven with threads of gold and silver, depicted the lineage of the Sunstone Kings, my lineage. They felt like mocking witnesses to my current vulnerability. The massive oak doors, each panel intricately carved with scenes of long-forgotten battles and mythical beasts, the griffin hunt, the serpent's fall, the binding of the Shadow Lord, buckled and splintered under an unseen force. The wood groaned in protest, a tortured scream of ancient timber, before finally exploding inward, scattering shards of wood across the polished marble floor like broken teeth. The force of the impact sent a shockwave through the room, extinguishing several torches and plunging sections of the hall into deeper shadow. He stood there, framed by the jagged remnants of the doorway, a silhouette against the fading twilight bleeding in from the shattered windows beyond. It wasn't a graceful entrance. It was a claiming, a forceful assertion of dominance. His presence was a palpable thing, a wave of raw power that washed over me, stealing my breath and sending a shiver tracing its icy fingers down my spine. It felt like standing too close to a forge, the heat radiating outwards, threatening to consume. His eyes, visible even in the dim light, burned with a familiar fire, a molten intensity I hadn't witnessed in years, a fire that had once consumed me body and soul, leaving nothing but a hollow ache in its wake. They weren't the warm embers of a past love, they were the scorching glare of a predator assessing its prey. A dangerous, knowing glint flickered within them. My heart, a traitor's thing, lurched in my chest, pounding against my ribs like a frantic war drum. It felt too large, too exposed. I pressed a hand to my sternum as if to physically contain its rebellion. The scent of ozone and something wild, something untamed, his scent filled the air, dragging forth a torrent of memories, unbidden and unwelcome. It was the smell of storm-racked mountains, of pine needles crushed underfoot, of leather and steel and something inherently dangerous. It bypassed my conscious mind, going straight to the primal part of my brain that remembered being utterly, completely his. The ghost of his touch lingered on my skin, a phantom warmth that contrasted sharply with the chill of the stone throne. The searing brand of his lips, the way he'd tasted of dark honey and forbidden spice, was a phantom pressure. I remembered the weight of his body pressed against mine, the intoxicating surrender, the feeling of being utterly lost within him. And the cold, calculated words that had shattered my world. The echo of that single, devastating word, *weak, still reverberated in my soul, a constant throb of pain. It was a brand seared onto my very being. I'd spent years building walls around that wound, and his mere presence threatened to crumble them all. He hadn't changed, not really. The years had etched themselves onto his face, carving deeper lines around his eyes and mouth, adding a rugged harshness to his already formidable features. A silver streak now ran through the dark cascade of his hair, but it only served to accentuate the power radiating from him. His jaw was still sharply defined, his cheekbones high and proud. But the fire in his gaze, the arrogant tilt of his chin, the sheer force of his presence, all were achingly familiar. And terrifyingly arousing. A flush crept up my neck, betraying my composure. Gods, I hated how easily he still affected me. I'd trained myself to be a queen, to be stoic and unyielding, but facing him felt like reverting to the naive girl he'd once known, the girl he'd broken. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "Why now?" I demanded, my voice a shaky whisper that barely carried across the cavernous hall. It sounded pathetic, weak. I cleared my throat, trying again. "After all this time, why now?" I gripped the cold, carved arms of the throne, desperately trying to project an image of regal composure, but my fingers trembled against the stone. The stone felt slick beneath my touch, almost as if it were sweating. I focused on the intricate carvings of the sunstone crest, willing my hands to still. He didn't answer immediately. He simply stood there, allowing the silence to stretch to amplify the tension in the room. It was a tactic. He always knew how to wield silence as a weapon. Finally, a slow, deliberate smile curved his lips, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was a predatory smile, promising both pleasure and pain. "Did you truly think you could forget me, Lyra?" His voice was a low rumble, a velvet rasp that sent another shiver down my spine. It was a voice I'd dreamt of, and a voice I'd sworn to never hear again. Did you believe that time and a crown could erase what we were? He took a step forward and I instinctively flinched, though I forced myself to remain seated. Each step was measured, deliberate, closing the distance between us. What I asterisk was asterisk is irrelevant, I said, striving for a tone of icy indifference. I am queen now, and you are trespassing. He chuckled, a dark, humorless sound. Trespassing, this castle, this kingdom, it all remembers me, Lyra. It remembers the promises we made, the power we wielded together. He stopped a few feet from the throne, his shadow falling over me. I could feel the heat of his body, the subtle shift in the air as he moved. Promises made in youth are easily broken, I retorted, my voice gaining a little more strength, especially by those who lack the courage to honor them. His eyes narrowed, the molten fire within them intensifying. Courage, you question my courage. He reached out, his fingers brushing against my cheek. It was a light touch, barely there, but it sent a jolt of electricity through my system. I instinctively turned my head, breaking his touch. I question your loyalty, I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts. You abandoned me, you abandoned this kingdom. Don't pretend you're here out of anything but self-interest. He lowered his hand, his expression unreadable. Self-interest is a powerful motivator, Lyra, but it's not the only one. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the throne room, taking in the shattered doors, the dust-covered tapestries, the remnants of my carefully constructed world. Something is coming, Lyra, something ancient and terrible, and you will need my help to survive it. I stared at him, my mind reeling. What are you talking about? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The shadow blight, it's stirring, and it remembers the Sunstone Kings and their queen.